98FM. The sound of the city.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Weekdays from 10 a.m.
With Adrian Kennedy.
An Irish doctor by the name of Ida Milne has spoken out in the media today about the whole issue of vaccines. Now, it's an issue that divides some parents, with some ensuring that their children get vaccinated, others not ensuring that they get vaccinated. Other parents, like, for example, a mother we spoke to on the show only last week, are paranoid about getting their children vaccinated because they believe that the vaccine has very severe side effects. I'm joined on the line by Dr. Ida Milne, who's from the Irish Research Council and Marie Curie Fellow at Maynooth University. Dr. Milne, welcome to 98FM.
Thanks very much for having me on, Adrian. I'm actually a historian rather than a medical doctor. I studied the history of disease.
Which makes your opinion on this even more valid, because I'm fascinated to read that the thing you're trying to highlight is if we only realised how severe some of the illnesses that we vaccinate against actually were in the past, then we probably wouldn't think twice about vaccinating.
Oh, I've spent the last 4 years, my project has been looking at the impact of infectious diseases on Irish childhood since 1911 until the present day. So I've done a combination of looking at statistics and the methods that were used to improve things, and also doing oral history interviews with all the people who would have played, parents who suffered, whose children suffered disease, or families who suffered disease, individual sufferers who were left with lifelong damage. And also then looking at people like ministers for health and other workers and medical workers talking about the impact it once made. And
okay, really, so let's look at...
The proof is kind of incontrovertible,
yes.
The vaccination works.
Let's look at something like measles, okay? And measles is something that we vaccinate against. Measles is something that some people will have had when they were children, but measles is something that is making a huge resurgence of late. What are the dangers of measles? And it's more than just getting red spots.
Oh, yeah. The immediate danger is obviously feeling very unwell and getting a high temperature and having, but then there is also the complications of measles, that people can get encephalitis or meningitis. There are also issues like we, as children, I was born in 1960, and we almost accepted that once we got measles, our eyesight wouldn't be as good. But for some people, measles would enter the optic nerve and they would have rather worse damage, that they could have quite a serious loss. Then other people, I've interviewed somebody who caught meningitis and became profoundly deaf from that and had to endure the rest of her life not being able to communicate with her own family. And so there are very, very serious complications to measles. I've heard of a child that was left effectively brain dead after having measles. And also it can cause death, very obviously. When you look back in the 1910s, 1911s, at the beginning of the period I'm looking at, measles was causing maybe an average of 500 deaths a year. Wow, right, okay. So that's how serious it is, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we also vaccinated against different things like polio, for example, which ravaged this country as well before we had a vaccine, and left people with some very severe disabilities, for example. And the point of your writing is that new parents seem to have so little knowledge of diseases like measles or polio that they think the vaccine is more dangerous than the disease. And you're trying to highlight, no, don't think so.
Yes, I like another cohort that I've interviewed are people who have this idea that the vaccine resistors. For a small number of people, vaccination is dangerous. I had a premature baby, and for some time she wasn't permitted to get vaccines. And that means that it's all the more important that we have what's called herd immunity, that 95% of the population or more gets vaccinated against it. So little babies, tiny, my daughter was 2 pounds weight, little babies like that are protected because measles isn't circulating so much in the community. But really, vaccination in a way has been a victim of its own success, because now people shout about things like big pharma, and that people are trying to think that the vaccine is more dangerous than the disease, and that's just not the case. The statistics and the stories I've collected bear that out.
So people who, and you describe them as new parents, they're, in fact, as soon as I finish talking to you, I have a caller who's anti-vaccine. What is your message to people like that? And it is a fairly sizable percentage of parents who aren't vaccinating their children. Your message to them is you're doing your child no favours.
Well, I suppose, yes, it is. Talk to your aunts and uncles. Ask, is there anybody damaged by those diseases in your family? Diseases that we can now vaccinate against. We now have a hip vaccine which prevents meningitis. One of the many wonderful vaccines we have. For a very small percentage of parents, there will be an issue. But they really should talk to their GP about the individual risk to their own child before they, deny vaccination, because I'd hate anybody to be in a position. I saw my second daughter actually catching measles, and I really was very frightened when she caught it, but luckily she was okay.
All right, it's an interesting conversation, and it's one that, as I said, when I was a young fella, it wasn't even a conversation, because every child got immunised and that was it. You didn't have parents objecting and refusing to get their children vaccinated. Today, though, it is a much bigger issue in terms of conversation. But Dr. Ida Milne, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on 98 FM.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, I'd love to hear from you on this, on 6797 981. I mentioned that we had a lady on the show, and that this was in a passing conversation. I can't even remember. What was she on about originally? I can't remember what she was... Oh, she was on about fluoride in water. And Jeremy just happened to say, I bet you're one of those parents who hasn't vaccinated her children either. And here's what she said on the show last week.
Now, I noticed you have a child in the background there. Can I ask you one quick question about the child?
Yes.
What's your feelings on the whole immunisation of children and giving them injections and stuff like that?
Well, it's a constant battle in this house now. She's due her last needle since November, and I've been holding off because I'm really not into it.
The reason I asked that is because I knew by talking to you that you were, and again, I'm not judging you, but I knew you were the kind of person that would probably have a problem with this whole immunisation that's going on with children. And this is all over Facebook, Adrian, every day, isn't it? That people saying you shouldn't give your child injections or immunise them and stuff like that.
Now, as we've heard from Dr. Ida Milne, you should. If you knew the dangers of the diseases that we vaccinate our children against, then you wouldn't think twice about it. And that's the point that she is trying to make, that we seem to have forgotten how dangerous. I mean, 500 kids a year were dying from measles, just measles, 100 years ago. Doesn't happen now, although it could have again start to happen if people continue to not vaccinate their children. Stephen, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Stephen?
Not too bad, how are you?
Stephen, you are a father who is not getting his daughter any more vaccines. Why?
Just from the research I've done, really, to be honest. I've looked into it quite a lot over the last few years. My daughter's 3 years of age now.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't agree with the amount of them. Once upon a time there was 4, now there's over 224 of them. For all different amounts of reasons.
Yeah.
There's lists of lists. If you ask your average doctor, you go into your GP and ask him or her what's in the vaccines, I guarantee you they can't tell you exactly what's in the vaccine. Which, if they don't know, why should we put it into our kids, unknown of what's inside of it? Okay,
what about the risk of the diseases that... I, for example, have an aunt who had polio when she was a kid, and she... had awful difficulties in her life as a result of that, in terms of physical disabilities and whatever. Isn't that a huge risk that you're taking with your child?
Well, in a sense, yes, but
not just also, in a sense. It is a huge risk.
But we got myself and my partner. We got the first 3 in the hospital, which I got myself as a child. but we won't be bringing her back for any boosters or anything else after that. I just don't. There's no need for all these new sophisticated ones. There's like aborted babies, particles and everything in some of these things. Like, it's crazy.
Okay, one of the things that Dr. Milne said is that new parents have so little knowledge of diseases like measles and what they can actually do to you that they think the vaccine is more dangerous than the disease. And what she is saying is, no, that is just not true.
Well, look, I can't argue with a doctor because I'm not a doctor. But could she off the tip of her tongue name a few of the chemicals or toxins that are added to these vaccinations?
She's not on the line, so I can't get her to answer that. But what she is saying is, for example, when she says to discuss it with your GP, but for example, back in the 50s, Irish people were keeling over left, right and centre from tuberculosis. It was a lung disease that was a killer. And we vaccinate against that now. You're prepared to risk your child catching tuberculosis? Well,
just regarding pop-ups and boosters and stuff, yes. But she got her first 3 in the hospital, which are the standard 3 that everybody's gotten, I think. The 3 jabs in the arm. Other than that, I will not be giving her any more, I'm afraid. It's just, from what we've all got mini computers in our hands on a daily basis.
I know, but you can read anything you want online. You can find out anything you want online. So you're not going to vaccinate her again against measles, mumps, rubella, tuberculosis, all of the things that we vaccinate against. You're just not going to do it.
No, well, like if other people's vaccines work so well, why should my child be vaccinated? If these vaccines actually do work, and my child is the only child, say for instance, but
the problem is, Stephen, your child isn't the only child. There are lots of parents like you that aren't immunising your children, and as a result, illnesses like this, and we've seen in the last year or two. A huge resurgence in measles, for example. And your daughter could catch measles and be very, very sick or permanently damaged.
Well, she has had her first 3, as I said before, but won't be renewing with boosters and stuff like that. Definitely not a hope.
Okay, stay there for a second. Kevin, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Kevin?
Good morning, Adrian.
Good morning, Kev. How are you?
Look. Don't get me wrong. I'm not calling anybody a bad parent, just an ill-informed parent, right? There's a reason there's so many. What this gentleman said, there's 240 in a vaccine. There's a reason for it, right? And look, if this guy took his daughter away abroad and picked it up abroad and brought it back within the school or whatever, if there's a reason, and the doctors know more than the internet does. Never mind Facebook. You can self-diagnose all you want. You're only going to find what you want to find, which is a bad thing, right? And that's what this guy seems to be saying that he's done. He's done
his research online, yes.
Online. And you're going to pick out the ones that are the bad scenarios. You're never going to pick out the ones that are the good scenarios. So he's self-deluded in a certain way. Now, God help.
Stephen, the point he's making is that or the point that I think I'm hearing here is everything has risks. When you take your child out in the car, that has a risk. Everything has risks, but the benefits far outweigh the risks.
And God forbid his child gets sick, gets something like that girl said, measles, blind, deaf, whatever, or whatever the other meningitis. God forbid, who's he going to blame? If God forbid it ever happened. If it did happen, he's only himself to blame for his own child's future illness. And what's he going to say then when it's too late?
No, I agree.
What are you going to say when it's too late, mate? You're there to protect your child, nurture them, protect them in every way you can.
And
Come hell or high water. And the doctors know more than the internet. That's all I'm saying. They're not saying it to blow blue smoke up your bum, right?
No, your average doctor, I can guarantee you, cannot name at least 5 ingredients. But look, sure, if they don't know what's going into it, why should you put it into your child's arm or leg?
I'm sure they've been trained in relation to why.
They're only general practitioners. They're not actual doctors.
Give me a second. I'm sure They've been trained in relation to why this is necessary. And I'm sure anybody in their job, you throw them a spot question off the top, name 10 things that are in that vaccine. They've been trained. They know what they're doing. They're not giving it out for willy-nilly.
Stephen,
do you know what I mean?
Just another point, something I was reading in some of the work that that doctor has done. 100 years ago, okay, 20% of children died before the age of 5. 20% of them. And most died from illnesses that we can now prevent with vaccinations. 20% of kids under the age of 5 died.
And did he happen to find that information on the internet? Bet you he didn't.
Sorry, the point being that most of them were dying with illnesses that we hadn't at that point developed vaccinations for. Does that not scare you?
In a sense, it does. Yeah, like don't get me wrong. I got the first vaccines because I got them, and I feel fit and healthy as a 31-year-old. You know, I just don't, like, I was never boosted. I was never anything like that, and I'm completely fine. You know, so I think I'll just stick to what I've been given. And if I'm 31, fit and healthy, both physically and mentally, why would I add more stuff into my child's immune system, damaging the immune system, where they've been proven to cause autism in kids? Vaccinations have.
Okay, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp us on 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. We were talking a while ago with Dr. Ida Milne, who's done a lot of research on vaccinations, and basically her whole argument is if people realised what we, or the severity of some of the illnesses that we vaccinate against, you wouldn't think twice about it. And she's basically saying that people nowadays haven't a clue about the illnesses that we're actually trying to prevent and how serious those illnesses actually are. That's the point that she's trying to make. And the thrust for her whole article is new parents have so little knowledge of diseases like measles that they think the vaccine is more dangerous than the disease. And I think that's what I'm hearing from Stephen. Peter, you're on 98FM. How are you, Peter?
How's it going, Adrian?
Good, Peter. What do you want to say on this?
The guy you have on there, the study that he's talking about where the vaccinations give autism, that was only one study. That wasn't peer review. No other scientist could recreate that experiment. You know what I mean? It's all right-wing propaganda again. If vaccinating our kids was, like, if it didn't work, we would have, as you said, TB. We probably still have Black Plague. We probably still have smallpox. All these diseases that we think nothing of now because it happened back then. And can you imagine scientists back then saying, hey, we created this vaccination for smallpox, and everybody going, oh, don't take that because it might give you this. But it gets rid of the smallpox, you know? And if they really did make people sick, like a lot of people are saying, oh, the vaccinations, on them same pages where they say they give autism, they also say the government are the one giving people vaccinations because it's for more.
I know, and the same people who think we're being poisoned by airplanes in the sky dropping medication or dropping chemicals on top of us.
Well, Agent, to be honest with you, that has been proven.
Go way out of that. Stop it now. Stop.
Congress in America had.
I'm not even going to talk about that now. But
it's called geoengineering, and Harvard University are doing experiments on it.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that another day. Denise, you're on 98FM. How are you, Denise?
I'm good.
Now, Denise, what did you want to say on this?
No, I was just saying, you know, the TB vaccine you talked about, it's actually out of stock and has been out of stock for 3 years in Ireland. I can't get it for my daughter who's 3. She's on waiting list 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
And when will you be able to get it?
I don't know. They'd say they don't know when it'll be back in stock.
I didn't realise that. And I have to say, of all of the illnesses that we prevent with vaccines, that TB is one that would be most scared of, I have to say.
And it's coming. There's a lot of it lately. I've heard of cases of it lately.
Yes, and so have I, yes.
Yeah, and I've gone to the nurse and asked her, and she said that it's not in stock, you can't get it, and they're thinking of not bringing it back off.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if anybody has any information on that, I'd love to find out what the story is there. If somebody can give me any information. 6797981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp us 0877 98 98 98. Do you have any fear of vaccines, Denise?
Oh, I do, yeah. The measles one is the one that's linked with autism. So I actually got done my child a year late because I had a fear of it. I waited until she was 2 and I got it then. But I did a lot of research, and as you said, the disease is worse and the risks of the disease are higher than the risks of the medication going wrong. So it's just which is the worst off. And
but you have got her done.
Oh yeah,
Right.
without a doubt, yeah, because there's too many people not doing it.
And as you said yourself, we're hearing cases of measles, we're hearing cases of TB, and you know, people think if we're all vaccinated, then these illnesses won't be around, but they are. Yeah. That's the reality of it, and increasingly so. That's the real worry. Christine, you're on 98 FM. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What did you want to say, Christine?
Just in regards to the chap that's saying like a GP can't rhyme off the top of his tongue like every ingredient that's in these vaccinations. When I brought my son, it wasn't even the GP that gave him the vaccination. It's actually a nurse that's there, like designated in her own room, that does the vaccinations. I had this little booklet that I was given with the date, the batch number, everything that the vaccination came from. You can go in, research it yourself, see everything that's in it. The nurse herself went through everything that was in the vaccinations that my son was getting. So I don't know where like he's going saying that a GP needs to know every single ingredient in it, because
and in fact, just
not that they need to know. It's not on a fact they need to know. They just don't know. They couldn't tell you 5 ingredients in the vaccination.
To begin with, though, they're not giving you the vaccination. I didn't bring my son to a GP for the vaccination. It was in the GPs in their building, but it was done by the nurse, and the nurse was able to tell me everything that I needed to know. She probably could have told me off the tip of her tongue exactly what was in it, because she had everything up on the screen there in front of me. Like, she was able to write into the book, like, they're basically tracing the vaccinations right back to where they've been made up.
When it's been developing. But there's no long-term studies on any of the new vaccinations that have been done, so how do we know that none of these new vaccines are going to cause future long-term damage for future generations?
But sorry, Stephen, the illnesses that a child can develop as a result of non-vaccination will most certainly have long-term consequences, if not death.
My argument is...
the word prevention is better than the cure?
Sorry?
Have you ever heard the words prevention is better than the cure?
I haven't, and I have my daughter is vaccinated at the moment. She just will...
cure it.
Sorry?
Would you not rather prevent your child from getting the likes of the diseases that these vaccinations like help stop? Would you not rather prevent her getting them than having to cure them for her?
I would. She's already got her first 3 vaccinations, but she will not be getting any more after that. There's no need for the rest of them. I got the first 3, and I'm fit and healthy at the age of 31. Never had a problem.
But that's
you're growing up in a different age.
That's what I was about to say. You grew up in an age, Stephen, where everybody was vaccinated. That is not the case now. So you could be taking an even bigger risk with your own child. Let me read this message, Stephen, and it says, does that man know what is in an average antibiotic, for example? Does he question a doctor if he's prescribed one? And where will he bring his child if his child contracts a disease caused by non-vaccination? Here's what the final bit of this message. People are so privileged these days that they think they know better than scientists and doctors. What do you say to that, Stephen?
A pretty good argument, to be honest with you. I've done my own research. I know people don't agree with doing your own research, and you should believe doctors, but you can do your own research. You know, you can go as deep as you want. You can look at the positive.
The point I made earlier on is you can find the answer that you want to any question.
Correct. No, I agree completely with that. But if you actually dig deep and find out everything, look at it from both sides. Don't just be biased. Look at it from both sides, and then think of what you've had yourself, and think: do you think that your child needs this new generation of vaccine just because an organisation, health company say so?
Okay,
We've no long-term studies on this, so we don't know the causes.
Lisa, you're on 98FM. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Adrian. How are you?
Lisa, you didn't vaccinate any of your children either.
No, I didn't. I have 3 kids, and they never received any vaccination. I don't believe in them. I think that, especially hard vaccination, this assumption that people, expect all of us to comply with vaccinations just, to appease them, really, really grinds on me. What a person chooses to do with their children is their own business, really.
Okay, there are those that believe, in fact, I think we had a call coming up in a second, who believe that parents who don't vaccinate their children need to be charged with neglect because it is neglectful. And the argument from that doctor earlier on is, do you even realise the severity of the diseases that we vaccinate against? 20% of children under the age of 5 died 100 years ago. Died.
Never
reached 5.
100 years ago.
When we didn't have these. No.
Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, time has moved on. We've developed vaccines.
We've developed vaccines and times have moved on, and it's not a chance. There's not a hope I would volunteer toxins into my kids' bodies.
And so you're prepared to play Russian roulette with your children?
It was a chance I took, So
you accept that it was
confident.
You accept that it was a risk and a chance?
Of course there's a risk, but there's a risk to, the minute a baby's born, your world is filled with fear of what ifs, but you can't insulate them from everything. For instance, my 3 got chicken pox. I got it. I got whooping cough, this, that, and the measles, the whole lot. No one's dead. We all got through it. We're okay.
Okay, stay there for a second.
With people, sorry, Adrian.
But don't minimise the dangers of measles, Lisa. Measles can actually kill.
It can kill, but what I'm saying is, more often than not, it doesn't.
So that's a Russian roulette risk you're prepared to take as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Christopher, you're on 98FM. How are you, Christopher?
How are you getting on, Adrian?
Good, thank you. What did you want to say on this?
Well, this is really just starting to get a bit too much. This university of YouTube. One person puts up a video saying something, and then suddenly all the sheep follow and believe it. The thing that autism is caused by vaccines, what these people who do not realise is that the symptoms of autism does not appear anyway, whether they're vaccinated or not, until maybe another 6 or 8 months afterwards. So the child is going to have autism whether they're vaccinated or not. Also, my own daughter has arthritis and she's on treatments every 2 weeks where her immune system has to be suppressed to nearly nil because that's basically what arthritis is. It's its own immune system fighting against itself. And she's very susceptible to all sorts of infections and diseases. So basically, not only are these people putting their own children at risk, they're putting my children at risk. And I do not really like that at all.
Okay.
I'm really angry at that.
I'm glad you brought that up. Stephen, by you taking a risk, you're taking a risk with Christopher's children as well.
But if his child's vaccine works, well then what has he got to worry about if my child's not vaccinated?
Does he not understand what I just said? Her immune system has brought to nearly nil in order to combat her condition. She's susceptible to everything. She can't get all the vaccines. She can only get certain vaccines. Live ones she can't get because they can end up killing her because they work constantly within your system. And the fact that you couldn't be bothered, excuse me a minute, I'm talking. The fact that you couldn't be bothered because you went on YouTube and seen a 1-hour video by some quack in America.
You don't know what I've done.
I know exactly what you've done. YouTube, Wikipedia, and certain other reputable websites. Oh, vaccines cause autism. That must be true. Let's not vaccinate because it couldn't be arsed. That's what it is. And you're taking other people's lives into your own hands there with your own selfishness.
Conversation, my friend.
Yes, I did.
I told you already. I said already I got my child vaccinated. Did you go
to university to learn all about how vaccines work and how the human body works?
Did you go to university to learn how vaccines work?
No, but I've been living with arthritis for the last 10 years and I know every single little thing to do with arthritis because my daughter has it and I want to protect her. That's what I know.
I understand that and I agree. If you want to protect your daughter by vaccinating her, that is your choice.
Do you not listen? Did you not hear a word I said? I repeated it twice.
Do you want me
to speak slower for you so you can understand it? Would you like me to make a YouTube video? Would you like me to make a YouTube video so you can understand it? her immune system is nearly nil to do with her treatment. It doesn't matter what she has or what she hasn't. She's still susceptible to getting these diseases. And so what if someone, say your child has got whatever it is and accidentally coughs on her, she could end up dying because of that, just because you're too lazy to let them get one small injection, which could save their lives. Back 150 years ago, people used to have children of 16 children because out of that 16, maybe 4 of them would survive. This is why these vaccines have gone, to stop all these diseases like cholera and diphtheria and all the rest of it. You know what I mean?
But all these new vaccines, we have no long-term studies. We don't know exactly what's in them. But
what we do have, Stephen, is we do have long-term studies of the dangers of the illnesses that we vaccinate against. We know exactly how damaging and harmful and potential to kill many of those diseases have.
But how do we know that these new vaccines won't be worse than what's out there already for kids to pick up?
Okay, stay there. Just want to bring in one last call, and that's you, Martin. You're on 98 FM. How are you, Martin?
Morning, Adrian.
One of the diseases that we vaccinate against is meningitis. And you have a story of a child in your estate.
Yes, only 6-7 weeks ago. 6-year-old was in school on Wednesday, felt a little unwell on Thursday, went to hospital Friday, was dead by Saturday from meningitis.
Good God. Wow. Do you know if that child was vaccinated?
I don't know. I can't say whether she was vaccinated or not. I know she got it and her cousin got it. Her cousin was very sick in hospital. The last I heard, she had come out of a coma she was in. Lucky enough, I don't know what damage has been done from the meningitis she contracted.
Yes, and it can be life affecting.
Yes.
The damage that it can cause. Does that not scare you, Stephen? No.
In a sense, yes, they do. But I know personally from me being given the first 3 that were ever given back in the 80s, I agree with them because they're for all meningitis, stuff like that, you know. But all these new ones, we don't know. We have no long-term studies on something that was only released 2 years ago. So how can we easily as parents just say, yeah, sure, go on. Go ahead, just throw that in.
So, for example,
my child will be the guinea pig, basically, for this.
For example, the HPV vaccine, which is to prevent cervical cancer. I don't know if you saw the lady on the Late Late Show last week, who is dying as a result of cervical cancer, appealing to people to get their child vaccinated for that disease.
What's the long-term studies on this certain vaccination?
Well, I'll tell you, the long-term prognosis for that lady is death. She is terminally ill.
My mother died from cervical cancer.
And that wouldn't make you think about it, no?
Not really, no, because, as I said, you can find information online. You can pick whatever information you want to pick. But look at it from both sides, as I've said already. Don't be biased. I wasn't biased when I done my research. Now I'm completely biased, because I've seen what effect it's had on some kids and what effect it had on other kids.
All right, look, Stephen, I'm way out of time. I talked to you all day about this. But thanks very much indeed for your call, and thank you all of you for your calls. You're listening to 98 FM's Dublin Talks.
98 FM. The sound of the city.
98 FM's Dublin Talks. Weekdays from 10 a.m.
With